So if you've watched the show before, I guess in 2015, one of the episodes, I did a story on this beautiful 68 Z28. This is my car. I've owned it for about 3 years, but it's time for it to go. I had a little bit of fun with it. I enjoyed it, and I picked up the green station wagon and the fleet line, so this is the one that has to go. So if it's here at the showroom, it's a very nice car, 68 Z28, numbers matching with paperwork. And that's the difference. I mean, this car is a good investment. Not only it's a good investment, it's just a good car. Has original sheet metal and the documentation, which I've always talked about in previous shows, and its numbers matching. So we're actually, right now we have 2 Z28s here for sale. This is a white 68 with 82,000 miles. It's my car. If it doesn't sell, it's going to Fall Carlisle auction. It's at the end of September, the last weekend of September. It's a really cool place, Carlisle. I talked about it before. If you've never been there, you can go there spring and the fall are the 2 general shows. And then they have Chryslers at Carlisle, Corvettes at Carlisle, imports at Carlisle, flea market, car show, cars for sale. Well, twice a year they have an auction in the spring and fall. And this one's going to be there for sale at the auction. So if you want to see something that's really cool, check out Carlisle, check out the auction. Now this is one we have on consignment. It's a new customer. It's a 1969 Z28. It's more of a driver quality, and it's not numbers matching per se, and I'll explain that. The motor, trans, and rear are all dated February 1968 Z28. It's a DZ block. So it is a 302 69 drivetrain, and it's been installed into a V8 original yellow, Daytona yellow 69 body. We don't know what the car was, whether it be a Super Sport or it could have been a 307, but it definitely was a V8. He brought it to me to get some service work done, and he wanted to know if it was real. So we checked it out, and like I said, the drivetrain is pure Z28. It sounds like it. It's the same engine. It's the correct engine. It's just that the body was started out life as another 69 Camaro. And if you look at this car, it has a few imperfections in it, but it's very, very nice. This is what we would call a driver quality car, a car you go have fun with. They made 20,000 69 Z28s, they made 7,000 68s, and they made 600 67s. The 67s are the most valuable because they only made a few hundred. 69s, even though they made more, they are more valuable because they're more in demand. So we always talk about value. What are the cars worth? This particular car, we have it at $39,500 because the drivetrain is probably worth $10,000, the motor, the trans, and the rear, and it's a nice body that you could enjoy and have fun with. If this was an original car like my white Z28, where it was documented, paperwork, numbers matching, you'd probably be in the $65,000 to $75,000 range. And the condition it's in might be a little bit less, but that's the difference sometimes when people have to learn that you know, they're all a little bit different as far as value, and there's reasons why. And that's one of the reasons. This one, like I said, I would call it a clone, but it really is a Z28 drivetrain. So if you know anybody looking for a nice 69 Z28 to drive, tell them we got a nice one down here at Wheels in Motion at 525 East High Street in Pottstown. Okay, so in previous shows I like to talk about the body shop process and different things to help people understand sometimes what it takes to fix these new cars. And tonight's show, before I get started, I have a couple things I'd like to talk about. A few months back, a local guy, Denny Reitnauer, he was actually one of the original Little Brothers. We did a TV show years ago on the Little Brothers Car Club, and he owned AMS up in Stowe. And we lost Denny, sudden, and we lost AMS. The business had closed and it changed in a short amount of time. And I just realized I've been doing this for almost 50 years. I mean, I'm only 58 years old, but I started as a kid in my dad's garage in the north end of Pottstown. And I've been self-employed since 1979. And, you you know, a lot of people lately have been passing and things have been changing in Pottstown, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Joan Reitnauer, Denny Reitnauer, and we will miss them. We'll miss Denny and miss AMS for all the years. That's where we dynoed the motors. If you saw Big Red's motor, that was the dyno shop. And we're losing business, some businesses in Pottstown, and some are replacing. And that was one that was a sudden loss. So shout out to them. And another person, an old Pottstown guy, Marvin Yerger. Marvin was well known in the area for drag racing. He raced a powder blue Ford Comet and Yerger and Panco Corvette. And I hope in the future we get some pictures of Marvin and the Steve Panco's Corvette, and we're going to do a show on that. So if anybody has any pictures of those cars from Maple Grove, please get in contact with me, and we'll do a little show on that. Marvin, when I was a kid, my aunt lived next door, and they used to have the Comet and this Corvette. I'm 5 years old, 6 years old, and they used to work on them in the garage, and I would watch across the field out on Kepler Road. And then I became friends with Marvin and his grandson and his son throughout drag racing. So just something I wanted to mention, that I miss some of the local guys and here in Pottstown that were important to the car world. And everybody knows that Pottstown was a cruising town, okay? A lot of revenue, a lot of businesses benefited, like Shore McDonald's and Burger King, but they did away with the cruising, and we miss it. So if you get a chance on a Friday night and you want to take your hot rod out, go cruise up and down High Street like the old days and sit at McDonald's. I still do once in a while. And I wanted to show you this clip that's on the internet. So if you sit back for a couple minutes and watch what Pottstown used to be like, cruising High Street in downtown Pottstown. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about when you get into an accident, the insurance companies. I know I've covered some of this before in previous shows, but it's still a popular subject. Now, like I said, I've been in the car business since I was 16. I was in business, and then the body shop business I've been doing all my life, primarily a mechanic, but I've always did car repairs. So the reason I'm saying that is because when I tell people something, if I don't know the answer, I don't tell it. People a lot of times will come in and say, hey, how many quarts of oil does my Mercedes hold? And I don't know. If I know though, and I tell you, this is the way it works, it's because it's a fact. And why I'm saying that is because one of the problems sometimes we have is the time frame that your car is down. And a lot of people discount it. Well, it was just a bumper cover. Why does it take so long? Well, let me explain to you why it takes so long. In the body shop business, we're waiting for parts. We're waiting for the adjuster to do a supplement. There's a lot of things that hold the project up, including color match. In today's world, people pick the cars with the fancy colors, the fancy wheels, backup cameras, self-parking, lane avoidance. See all these new commercials? The technology on these cars in the last 3 to 5 years has just gone berserk. I can remember when the first computer hit cars in 1983. Now the average car has 7. They have a body module. They have a module that runs the engine. They're very complicated. So when they're in an accident, guess who gets to fix them? And we have the training, we have the information, we have the tools. If we don't, I will tell you, some things you have to take back to the dealer because they have the proper tool. We don't have it. But as far as the body shop business, everything is tied in. For example, if you take a bumper off of the car and you put it back on, sometimes the rear camera and the parking assist has to be reset. So again, it delays the repair in the car. So that simple bumper cover sometimes turns into, a lot. The one I tell is my cousin actually had a Cadillac. He hit a deer. The airbags didn't go off, okay? It was a weak repair. So upon this repair, when the car got hit low, okay, it didn't hit the airbags, but it locked the seat belts. The seat belts do not function anymore. The computer that runs the seat belts is under the seat. So we have to order seat belts. Well, they don't stock them. They make them. It takes 14 days to get the seat belts. The computer comes in, the seat belts comes in, we install them in the car. We have to take the seats out to do it. Then a person has to come in that we have that relearns the computer to match that Cadillac. So that simple deer hit bumper and a grill turned into a 3-week process. And, he was cool. Of course, he was my cousin. He understood because I explained it to him. But sometimes I have trouble with customers because they don't understand the complexity. It's not just the bumper cover. Most of the reason is rental coverage. If you don't have rental coverage, get it. It's usually $5 to $10 a month. That takes the pressure off of us and it eases your pain. If your car goes down, you're in a rental unit. Most insurance companies pay up to 30 days. So that gives us plenty of time to get your car repaired properly instead of rushing it or, a lot of times we're under the gun trying to get it done because, we know you need your car. You got to get back and forth to work. So check your insurance policies. Make sure you have enough coverage. And I talked about this before, especially on your classic car. Check your regular car and rental coverage. A lot of people think that they don't need it, but we see a lot of it. When the accident happens, they don't realize that parts. We had one the other week where it's called a tie bar, and the tie bar was back ordered. We cannot assemble the car without that part. So it took 3 weeks until Nissan got the tie bar in and we installed it. As soon as I got it, we painted it, put it in, the car was done the same day. But without that part, I can't assemble the car. The car was a 2011. So it's 7 years old. So a lot of the dealers aren't stocking parts for a 7-year-old car. And that one, like I said, was back ordered. Back ordered means that there's none around. In the old days, and this is something important too, if Kraus and Ludwig, the Chrysler dealer, didn't have it, we would call Vermont Motors. If Vermont Motors didn't have it, we'd call another Chrysler dealer. Same with Chevy. If Dames didn't have it, we'd call Bob Fisher. That's all gone. It's all computerized now. We deal with one warehouse for Chevrolet, GM, and one warehouse for the foreign makes. And they go in their computer and they say, hey, there's a bumper in Texas. There's a tie bar in New Jersey. They have that ability. So when they say it's back ordered, you don't have to call all the other dealers. Because we get that a lot of times customers are, well, did you try Cowan? Did you try Armin? Did you try? No, it's all a thing of the past. In today's world, those dealers have access across the country to every Ford, every Chrysler dealer. So it's just something that, like I said, I always try to address and try to explain so the general public understands the repair process when your car gets fixed. Because you'll hear sometimes about other body shops. Yeah, I took it to this body shop. They said it was going to be a week, and they had my car for a month. Well, I don't think it was their fault. I think that they want to get the car out as quick as possible to make room for another one, and they want to get your check and your money, so why would they delay it? It's usually because of parts holdup or an argument with the insurance company or something like that. So just be aware of that. Share it with your friends that if you hear that comment about, hey, it took too long, well, most of the time, if it's a reputable body shop, there's a good reason for it. So just something I wanted to address tonight, and I hope that nobody has an accident, but when you do, rental coverage is important, and the repair process. My son Nick is very good at explaining what's going on. We keep people updated, and we tell them what's going on, because if we tell them a week and it turns into 3 weeks, there's a good reason. So anyhow, that's our story tonight on body repair. I hope it helps. I hope that you can share that with some friends, and that's what it's all about here at Car Stories. Okay, the Eastwood Company. Eastwood sponsors Car Stories. They help us out with the latest tools, automotive supplies. They're located up on Shoemaker Road. And if you need any tools, sandpaper, paint, powder coating, go up and check out Eastwood. Even if you don't need anything, just go up and look around the store. They remodeled the store. They have some hands-on stuff where you can actually use a metal bender and a brake and a shear. It's a neat place. They're good people. Another local company here in Pottstown on Shoemaker Road. And we talk about buying local, supporting local. There's a good place to go. Just like our company, I appreciate everyone's business here in downtown Pottstown when they come into Wheels in Motion. It's family owned, and it keeps us here in Pottstown. So support local businesses and check out Eastwood. Okay, I got a car story for you. See this little red wagon? There's a story. Okay, some of the local shows, one of the local shows is McCungy. A few weeks ago they had Aukfest. It's been going on for many years. That is an all original car show. No hot rods, no modifications. I go on and off. I bring cars sometimes. Sometimes I go in the flea market. My wife, though, in all these years has never been to McCungy. Now, McCungy is at McCungy Park. It's absolutely beautiful. Flamin' Dick and the Hot Rods is an oldies band. They play on Saturday nights at the Pavilion. They have a tremendous ladies oasis. They must have 50 vendors. And my wife had a ball with candles and clothing and little knickknacks. And that's what's important. When you go to these car shows, they need to have things for the women. The setting is important. Like Duryea Day, I always tell about in Boyertown, which is Labor Day weekend. Great show to take your wife to or your kids to, because it's in the shade. They have a lot of things to do. But anyway, McCungy, my wife has never been there in all these years, and we went, and she had a great time. We're walking around the flea market. I had a car there for sale, and we were selling some parts. And she comes back, she goes, "You got to go look at this." And I walk over to this stand, and I see this red wagon, and it's just like the ones my kids had when they were little, but it's smaller. And I come walking back, and I said, "Yeah," I said, "that's really something. They have that red wagon." She goes, "No, not the red wagon." She goes, "The side of it was this Tide car, this orange car right here that my son had when he was little, okay? And it's in brand new. The people, this was a giveaway when my wife worked at Superfresh for Tide, okay? But ours is long gone from when Nick was 5 years old, but there's this one, okay? The gentleman wanted $75 for it. Now here's the lesson. If you don't buy this, we'll never get another opportunity, probably 1,000,000 to 1, to buy another Tide car in brand new condition. So being as I have some grandkids, and one of them's here tonight, Seth, I bought the Tide car, and Seth drove it today for the first time around the shop. And it's really neat because it has independent steering. It steers like this. Colin, the guy that works for me, when he was a little kid, wanted this car so bad that was in the A&P, Superfresh, on display, but he never got it. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is when you have an opportunity, sometimes you have to grab it rather than saying, you know, I should have bought that when I was there. Just get it and enjoy it. You only go around once. So my wife found this at McCungy, and we bought it. And I didn't buy anything. I didn't buy any car stuff. I didn't see anything. But we wound up coming home with this and the little red wagon. So Seth, show them how it works there, buddy. And then if you pull back on the handle, it's rear steer. Pretty cool, huh? So there's the car story. Remember, if you have a car story, get in contact with me. Okay, so Duryea Day, Labor Day weekend, Boyertown Park, Saturday. Great show for the family. Boyertown Museum, if you've never been there, Boyertown historic vehicles. We did a show on it. It's on the internet. If you want to see it, you'll get a sneak peek of it. They just redid the whole inside. It's a whole new setup. They sponsor Duryea Day. From the park in Boyertown, you can hop a shuttle and go over and see the museum. Highly recommend it, even if you're not a big car person. It has a lot of local history. The other museum is the AACA Museum up in Hershey. And they have permanent displays, and they have a rotating display. Like 1 month it'll be, convertibles and high performance cars. I'm sorry, not 1 month. It'll be like a period of 6 months. Right now, the current moving display is original paint cars and survivor cars. Well, if you ever saw my '59 Impala, that is the nicest survivor car that I've ever seen, and I'm lucky enough to own it. That's in the Hershey Museum. And here's a few pictures of the museum. Shows my Impala, and it shows the Tucker display. Absolutely beautiful. This gentleman donated 3 Tuckers and a lot of memorabilia to the AACA Museum in Hershey, and here's just a few shots of it. Now, next month, Gus and I are going to the museum, and we're going to do a show, Car Stories, from the AACA Museum in Hershey. So make sure you stay tuned. So this is one that's been on the show before, 49 Ford pickup. The cab was in bad shape. We fixed the cab all up. We painted the inside, edged it, see how the door jambs are painted, the dash, the floor, the firewall. And just today, we sat the cab back on the frame, and we will hang the doors, fit them. I already had them fitted once, so it shouldn't be a problem. And then it'll get sanded down one more time real lightly and put in the booth for final paint. So it's a somewhat of a hot rod. It's a 460 Ford engine, but it's going to look original. It's original appearance with the wide white walls and the, so it'll be a mild custom or a mild hot rod. But wait till you see this when it's done. It's going to be beautiful. The details of this, Jeff's doing this one, and it's really going to be sharp. 49 Ford pickup here at Wheels in Motion. Okay, if you saw previous episodes, this is a 57 Chevy. The guy owned it for 25 years. He spent 25 years building it, and unfortunately, 89 miles, it was involved in an accident, very bad. It bent the frame, it bent the cowl. When we got the car, the doors wouldn't shut. So we put a new frame under it. We put a new, or fixed the cowl. And it kind of sat here because I finished the red Camaro. The red Camaro was also on the previous shows. It was sideswiped by a tractor trailer. And that one's done, gone, beautiful. The customers love it. So now my next project is finishing the 57. So last week I sanded down the car. We're painting the whole car, and I sanded it down and painted it actually on Monday of this week. So now the paint came out beautiful, very little dirt, okay? Looks fine. We call it orange peel. And a lot of the show cars, we take the orange peel out. And a lot of people have heard of this, but I'm going to show you. There's 2 different methods. There's dry and wet. Dry is with a DA, and you got, this happens to be 1500 sandpaper. It's pretty simple. It goes 1000, 1500, 3000. 3000 is like the cloth of your blue jeans. It's a rough cloth. And then 5,000 is foam rubber. And foam rubber actually starts shining the car. It's very good, expensive. But what this does, it reduces your buffing time. So you don't have to spend as much time buffing with the buffer. That's the process that we use, one process. And that's what we use, or we wet sand it. But first I want to show you this. Now you look at that and say, that's beautiful. But watch this. Now can you see that? See that grain? See that texture? It's very minimal, but that's what we want to get out. So it looks like a sheet of glass. So that was 1500. Just show you real quick. This is 3000. See how it's starting to shine it back up? And then this is the 5000. See it? How it's shining up now? Of course, I'm going to sand that and get all the peel out, take my time, but I just wanted to give you a quick demo of the process. Then, at that point, I would buff it with heavy compound, medium compound, and light compound, just like this. Coarse, medium coarse, fine. And that's the process. Now, an average sand and polish job, if you're doing every square inch of the car on a car this size, you're looking at a couple days, 3 days to a week of work to make it nice. So it's expensive, but if you want that flat, dirt-free, no orange peel finish, orange peel is okay on a regular car, but on a show car, you want to get rid of that. Like that car looks great just the way it is. But what I'm going to do is I usually just do the hood, the roof, the trunk, and the tops, and I leave the bottom go. It saves a little time, and you don't really need it way down low. That's one way. The wet way is a bucket of water. Now, this is something we sell here at Wheels of Motion, and I've talked about it before. Grit guard goes in the bottom of your bucket, okay? When you're washing your car, your sponge never lands down in the grit. People will throw their sponge in the bucket, pick it back up, didn't realize it picked up stones, and they scratch their paint. We use the same thing for wet sanding. Put that in the bottom of the bucket so that when I put my sandpaper in, it never hits dirt. This is a piece of 1000. This is a rubber pad. You wrap it around the rubber pad, you get it wet, and you wet sand it. The nice thing about this is you can get the car a little bit flatter and you're controlling it. Now you hear that sweet sound there, just listen. If it starts squeaking, stop, because that means there's a piece of dirt. If there's a piece of dirt, it's going to scratch your paint. And then you squeegee it off, and you can see it levels it out. Again, 1000, 2000, 3000. It's a process. And that's how we get that show finish. I mean, you could paint yourself at home. If a little bit of orange peel, a little bit of dirt won't matter. You just sand out the texture. Now see, when it dries, you can still see there's some in there. So wet sanding, color sanding, some people will call it. Two different ways. The dry sanding makes dust. The wet sanding doesn't, but it's messier. And after a while, even if you wear gloves, your fingers get a little weird. So there's drawbacks to both processes. The dry sanding is a little quicker, but you gotta be careful that you don't scratch it with a piece of dirt. And where do you get this stuff? Eastwood. Eastwood sells all grades of sandpaper and buffing supplies, so if you wanted to try it. If your car's a new car, I wouldn't recommend it because there's not much clear on it. But if somebody painted it and put a decent amount of clear on it, you can improve the finish by wet sanding it. So that's a little bit there. If I get a question sometime that, how do you get them so flat and smooth? That's how we do it. It just takes time. Well, folks, that's another episode of Car Stories. I hope you enjoyed it. I tried to make it as good as I can. But what I need is people to come, tell their car stories. I need your pictures. And if you have any, make sure you get in contact with me or Gus at PCTV. And don't forget Eastwood. And don't forget to watch Pottstown Cable. It's a good channel to watch sporting events, car stories, and many other things. So that's all for tonight. Thanks for tuning in to Car Stories.